And we are live. Welcome to this latest episode of Totally Unscripted. My name's Martin Hoxie. And as ever, I'm joined by Steve Webster. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Martin. Hi, Charles.
And we also have Charles. Hello, Charles Maxon.
Hey, Martin. Hey, Steve. Hello, everybody. Shout out to Jacob and Joshua, our first two posters, actually joining us live here. So hello, gentlemen. Thanks for joining us.
Well, it brings to mind a tweet as well we got when we announced the show. So today we are talking about alternate runtimes for workspace add-ons. And I can't remember who sent the tweet to me, but they said, finally! So I think this is a very anticipated show. And I think this is a really interesting development. I think we're going to unpick some of the questions that we've got beforehand, but also if you've got questions, feel free to throw them into the YouTube chat as well, and we'll try our best to pick them up. But should we just crack on? I
think we should, but I think a couple things just to set up. I think this is the first time I really feel great about the name of the show. Totally Unscripted, because it will be totally unscripted, right? Without talking about abstract. Good one. Which is kind of good. And as you mentioned, I think we've got two great guests. Steve, who's part of my team, who's worked a lot with it, and Riel, who's done tons to actually already pioneer what you can do with it. So let's bring him on.
Here we go. Hello. So we were just also chatting to Riel beforehand, and you should look at Riel's GitHub page because we were talking about how he controls his Tesla car with Google Apps Script. So he's still got some Google Apps Script love for us all. But Riel, do you want to just say a bit more about yourself and your background?
Yes, I'm Riel. I'm with you as a Google developer expert for a few years now, and a company is Apps in the Netherlands, and for the last 10 years we are doing Google Workspace deployments for our customers, and also adding additional value by developing all kinds of automation tools on the Google Cloud Platform. And of course, in the past, a lot of using AppScript, moving beyond as well and seeing all the possibilities that the cloud platform is giving to us. And now where the new alternate runtimes for the add-ons gives us a lot more opportunities even to tap into these workspace products and help customers with their businesses. And so, I'm very, very excited about it, and happy to start working with it and being part of this launch, so to say.
Excellent. And we also have Steve, who it's like you're almost a regular here.
I've only been on twice.
But for those who, for some reason, haven't come across you, Steve, do you just want to say a quick few words?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Steve. I'm a developer relations engineer at Google. I've been working on Workspace for since before it was Workspace. I go back to when it was still Google Apps and Google Apps for Business and G Suite and the whole chain of renames. But yeah, no, I've worked with lots of the APIs, Drive and Marketplace and everything. So this is just it's another API. It's a new way to get integrated, and I'm happy at launch. It's been in works for a while, and really curious to see what Riel has actually been building with it.
Awesome. Hey, so Steve, you kind of said a little bit already about what alternate run times are. Could you just explain in a little more detail? Could you also kind of explain who it's for? And then my follow-up question to you is, can you explain the name and what it means, and maybe why it's not the perfect name?
Yeah, I'm gonna start with that one. I've been pushing. I have the check writers on my side on this one, so hopefully we'll change it. It's just runtimes, right? I mean, they're only an alternate runtime because add-ons have been limited to AppScript for so long. But a lot of and I don't have anything against AppScript. I love it for certain use cases. But to answer the question about who is this for, there's an audience of developers, particularly professional developers, ISVs that have already invested in certain tech stacks, right? Maybe they love C# and .NET. Maybe they do everything with Node.js or Java, right? It doesn't really matter what the particular stack is. But there's a lot of companies that have invested a lot of time and effort in their processes, their tooling, all their infrastructure for how they deploy, and they want to take advantage of that. So what they can do now is, add add-on functionality using the same stacks that they build the rest of their applications with, and not have to learn a new tool and new set of processes for how to deploy add-ons with AppScript. So the same functionality you get with AppScript, with a few exceptions, but with a lot more choice in how you approach it.
We still got Charles.
Sorry, I muted there because I didn't want to speak over you, and then I didn't speak at all. Since you were last on, Steve, we went GA, right, with alternate runtimes, as the name still is. But we also released the Google Workspace add-on API. Can you just talk a little bit about what that is and why we added that on top, no pun intended, to the framework?
Yeah, it really has to do with, again, sort of the history of add-on being based on AppScript. They had previously used the AppScript manifest as the vehicle for describing how an add-on integrates. That's part of how you deploy an add-on is you have to tell the add-ons framework, which methods to invoke, which endpoints, which integration points, like do you show up in Gmail or Drive or the editors. So there's a lot of information beyond just writing the code for the add-on. There's all this configuration code that has to go along with it. And as part of decoupling from AppScript, that functionality of describing an add-on is now broken out into an API. There's actually, I don't suspect a lot of people would use the underlying API itself, even though it's there. The better way to do it is it's actually just integrated into the Cloud Console. So you can go in, you can paste your JSON there. And it's also integrated into the G-Cloud command line. And that's actually how I do it whenever I'm deploying. Just working on a code lab for this. We'll be out soon. But it actually makes it really easy where you can, actually the entire code lab, you're just in Cloud Shell in your browser on the command line. And it works great. I think it's a much easier way of doing things. But there is an underlying API, but it's not something that most people would have to concern themselves with.
This probably leads on to a question we got from Joshua Snyder. Who's I think watching live. So hello, Joshua. So his question is: Can you migrate an existing add-on to an alternate runtime, and if so, what kind of things did you need to consider for that?
It's a great question. Right now, I couldn't give you the play-by-play of how to do it, but this is actually an important topic, and just chatting with our technical writers, one of the things we're working on is restructuring the documents now that everything's out. I want to make a nice, really easy path, but this is actually, I think, an important topic that I want in there. Because it is like there are some mechanical parts of like how do you have to move the deployment over, change if it's in the market, and it's going to vary if you're in the marketplace or not, but roughly I would say you'd have to create your new deployment, build out your backend, and then update your marketplace listing to use the new deployment. It's like roughly the steps, but there's a lot of detail in there that I am glossing over for just because it's not a well-paid path yet, but it is an important thing that like over the next few weeks and months, I hope we'll have a lot more guidance to make this really easy for people.
Steve Webster, I know you actually did this and went through the experience of the exercise. What can you share with us your background of doing that migration on one of your add-ons?
Sure. So from the legacy editor add-ons, you have their HTML service. And then I wanted to take advantage of the card service using, the new GWAL. So I actually created a little video and a presentation on that could be shared later. But my experience was I enjoyed the UI portion because going to the card interface, in one hand, one may look at it and say, oh, it's limiting what I can do. It's like, well, it's helping you to be better, right? So I felt very happy going from maybe 1,000 lines of HTML related code to maybe just a few dozen, right, lines of code. And so everything can be tidy and things like that. So yeah, I actually enjoyed that process.
So, Riel, you've been doing AppScript-based development for, dare I say, a decade, right? What attracted you to moving to alternate runtimes? What's the business benefit? Can you give us a little bit of your background with it?
Yes, the reason I really like it is not because I dislike AppScript. We all love AppScript, right? We all say the same. No, but you have, in the end, you have applications running on your own services, on your own service, your own environments. We do a lot on Node.js because it just has more power than we sometimes need, and that we can get from AppScript. And when we want to build an add-on that can take this logic and the things we already built, all these processes we have, it's very easy to just have your own service return these cards that you describe just with some simple JSON files and return this to your add-on. So for me, the big benefit was to keep our existing infrastructure, even our existing services that were already deployed, to have add-ons just talk to them and just give them a response and create an interaction with the tools we already had. And we didn't have to write any new AppScript. We barely had to write any new code to make this happen. And that's what we did with the thing that we went in the blog post about the tooling. And I can, later on in the show, I can show you how this actually goes when you communicate with add-ons. But it was a big game changer for me to make this, and taking the card builder, building a quick interface to interact, and having your backend respond in a few JSONs. And I think within an hour, I had an interaction with an existing backend running.
Within an hour, that's pretty awesome. I don't know about everybody else, but I think it'd be a great time, perhaps, maybe to share that if you'd want to show us what you were working on to kind of explain that journey, because you made it sound easy. Show us.
It is easy.
Okay. So, well, let me start sharing my screen. Here we go. So actually, I think you can see our VS Code screen, right? I prepared a little demo that is actually just a little Node.js backend service, and I hope most of the people that are watching are familiar. But I think people that use Express and Node.js are quite a target audience also for these alternate runtimes. So when I just start to run my server quickly. So actually now I'm listening on this port on the local host. So actually what we now need to do is have our add-on later on being able to communicate actually my local device. There is a little tool that I use, which actually was a tip from Steve. It's called ngrok, and I will just if you can read this, make the screen a little bit bigger. And this tool is quite easy. I just can say, and what it actually does is it creates a little tunnel. It's just something that helps you. You can of course deploy your code to Cloud Function or the Cloud Run, and you get a URL as well. But in the end, all that matters is this URL here that you get. And this is now the link that I can use. I will copy it now to have my add-on actually talk to my server. So let me share another screen now. So think of this: my server now is running, and this is our production application that is doing some things in the. And share my. I have to switch from screens. So. Here we go. So I think now you should be able to see the Workspace API. I'm coming to back later. This is the card builder. Maybe some people have already seen it, but this is a tool that we can use to create an add-on. So like things are now, I want to create a demo card. I did something. You can really very easy add some parts. You can add a text paragraph here, have some text in here. This is a nice demo. Let's center it a bit just to show. And what Card Builder does is giving you this JSON here. It renders this JSON part. And this is actually describing the card that we have in screen. And you create all your navigation cards in this card builder tool. And actually, the add-on, the navigation is like it's a stacked way where you can push cards on top of other cards, move back, etc. I think this is a bit too far-fetched to show you now, but this is the principle. But in the end, all you need to do is your backend to fill or create this JSON. I can copy it here as well. So when I go back to my code base now, let me quickly switch again.
As you do that, Real, could you zoom in a little bit more in the code base so we can see it a little better?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
Better?
Yes.
Okay. So actually, when we post to this application, it runs the function return homepage. When I go there, actually, I have now this GVAO section. I just paste my JSON here. And you can see that when I run this function, it does a rest of JSON with a navigation action push card. So, okay. This is it. So I expect my application to run my card later. I still have this email link here. So now I have to actually deploy my add-on. I haven't done this, but I can show you this part and how it works. And let me go back to the browser again and go to the API. I hope you're still able to follow me. Oh, there we go. Here we go. So this is the Workspace add-on API, and you can create deployments here. And this is the difference that it was from AppScript. You had to do it with a manifest first, but now you can create deployments here, and you have 2 deployments actually running. And these are both not installed because I have an install action here. And as you can see on my inbox as well, there are no add-ons available here. So just to show you how easy it can be, I have a local test here. And when I edit this deployment, just you see that you can set for your add-on a bit of information. First, the scopes that you want your user to acknowledge when you open the add-on, and that you might need doing some requests for this user. But actually, the most important thing is here your Gmail compose trigger and my actions, and what you say here that I actually want to call a function. And this is I put it on both now, just most things you need to do. So now I put my run function on the URL I just created with my tunnel. So actually it will call my local deployment of the server. So I can say now, let's save it. It's down here, sorry, submit. It's still readable now because I changed the screen a little bit. And I can say install now. So when I click install now, my add-on will be installed. And when I refresh this page, you will actually see that my add-on is popping up here, and it's called Zap Silent. So when I click this, I expect the add-on to run my service, and I can't show you both screens at the same time. But you click it here, it runs. Ah, and it's an invalid URL.
No demo would be complete without at least one error.
So the neat thing is you're proving it's not.
Look, I put a space behind it here.
Yeah.
Let's remove the space there.
Whilst Rio is doing some typo nitpicking, perhaps Steve B, you can answer this question from Joshua in terms of when is basically the back end being triggered.
Yeah, it's a great question. The way add-ons work is those requests are basically being proxied through Google services. So the user interacts with Google services, and then in the middle, we take care of a lot of things around identity and OAuth and things like that, and then forward the request, to whatever backend is configured, and then translate that JSON response back into the right instructions for the UI. So yeah, it's the user is never directly interacting with the backend code.
What kind of response times? I would imagine because Google infrastructure is doing the proxying. The question is slightly dependent how good your backend, your runtime is.
Exactly. Yeah. There's some overhead from just the add-ons infrastructure itself, but yeah, a lot of it is going to be on how fast you return. The faster you can return a response, the faster we can return that response.
But in general, if you're looking for performance gains, I know a lot is on you per se in your back end, but obviously this could be a way to be faster than AppScript.
Potentially. I think early on, it's actually the origin of why of how URL fetch got the batch mode. Was because of add-ons. I had a couple of developers we were working with, and they wanted to be able to do fetch multiple API resources and combine them into the UI. And of course, in AppScript, everything is synchronous, and URL fetch is only allowing you to do one request at a time. You could imagine if you're making 10 HTTP requests in sequence, your response time is going to be pretty slow for users. So we actually got the AppScript team to do a batch mode HTTP fetch, which allows you to do that in parallel and sped things up. But if you look at something like Node, right, doing async requests is just, it's built in, right? And you have a lot of tools around how you construct, parallel work and coordinate things that, just weren't available. So that's, you can make a slow add-on with any runtime if that's what you want to do. But it's try to optimize things. These are things that happen in user time, and of course, people they don't want to be waiting longer than they have to.
Cool.
Yeah. So the nice thing in terms of development, you see now that my add-on is now actually connected to my local environment here by this ancient rock tunnel that we have. And one thing I really liked is the moment we change some things in my thing, testing cards, testing how a JSON response would look like in the add-on, it's very, very easy and very fast. So I can just this is TU 3.15. And of course, this app restarts, and just when I refresh my add-on, you will see that it immediately reflects. And this is something that was hard to do also on the AppScript programming and add-ons. You need a deployment, you need to change things, and it's back and forth. And now you have the two screens next to each other, and just use your existing building tools. And all things I use TypeScript. We can do some testing before we go, etc. So it really integrates into the workflow you already have, and that's what I think is very powerful now on these alternate runtimes.
So I imagine you work, obviously, you've got a team of developers that probably work on projects simultaneously. This has got to be a huge boom for them to work collaboratively versus, wait for me to share my AppScript with you, right?
Yeah, yes. In AppScript, this is not so straightforward to work with different people on scripts.
Yeah. No, that's all.
Yeah, definitely.
So we should probably stress as well that with alternate runtimes, we're talking card service here. So
yes,
HTML service, no, no. Card service, yes.
But
if
it's a whole other discussion if we want to start talking about
yeah.
HTML.
There was a question from Alex that we got in pre-show. So obviously with Gmail and Gmail add-ons, the big selling point initially for going and using card service was multiple platform. In terms of it's integrated into the mobile apps. Same landing for the editor add-ons as well.
I don't know what the times are for those. In theory, yes.
We'll take that.
And hopefully soon, but yeah, it's that is the way the infrastructure is built, and it's really just more organizational artifact that not every app is always caught up to everything, but yeah, that's the goal. Is they should work everywhere. Yeah.
Now the GWAO, I don't think Forms is included at this point, right?
Correct. Yeah, they are still on the older editor add-ons infrastructure. I mean, there's a lot of things that don't have add-ons yet.
Sure.
It's not in chat. It's not in just a few other places. Not like drawings, things like that. But it is an infrastructure that is designed to work in all these different contexts. It's just not every product team is on the same timeline.
So I'll throw this question to either one of you, both, Rael, you're working in, live apps and practice, and Steve, obviously you're helping folks understand really the best way to do these things. What does this mean to AppScript add-ons future? I mean, as we mentioned, we know we still have the old HTML service. As we know, though, this is a great way going forward. Is there still use cases that, in your minds, where AppScript add-ons are still a must, or should folks be thinking this is the future of add-ons and either get used to it or embrace it, or what? Either one is.
I think the idea about what AppScript should be differs a little bit on who you ask. But in my opinion, there are definitely use cases for AppScript. And I think really the people that want not necessarily experienced developers, but people that want to pick up some coding and build their own tools. And I think AppScript should be the tool to provide for that. And also be able to build your own add-on and to build your own cards, to make some buttons, to have your script do stuff for you. I think this should be the powerful things that AppScript bring to other users and have users build their own things. You don't have to worry about development environments or runtimes or banking tunnels for your endpoints, but just have it there and easily be able to point your add-on to your AppScript. And that would make it, of course, in my opinion, very powerful for more users than just our developers that work with this daily.
Yeah, the only thing I would add on that is there are a few use cases where AppScript, it has more capabilities than what you can do with the other runtimes, and it's mostly around the editors. Just because things like the notion of a session, right? Like it's just not in the REST APIs yet, so you can't figure out where's the user's cursor, right? What text do they have selected that you do have in AppScript. Hopefully those gaps get closed, so there is parity, and then it becomes more of a personal choice. To Rael's point, if you're just doing something for yourself and you want quick and dirty, like AppScript is super awesome for that. Yeah. And this, it's a little bit less setup, and within a few minutes you could have a basic add-on working, which a little bit harder with other runtimes because you have these other concerns. But yeah, there's a little bit of feature, difference right now. But
one of the things I personally love about AppScript is I don't have to deal with things like identity, OAuth, and those type of things. How much of a burden is that, or how much work do you actually have to do on the alternate runtime to actually make that a reality, give you that same experience?
Not that much, really. There's a little bit of extra work in just authenticating incoming requests. And that's, how much work that is depends on your platform that you deploy on. If you do that on GCP, it's quite easy because it actually integrates with the identity and access management policies. So it's just a matter of, running a command to grant a role to a service account. If you're deploying on AWS, you're going to want to, you're going to have to implement a little bit of code to just, validate an identity token. It's boilerplate code. It's not really that hard. And then the rest is we actually give, if you're talking to a Google API, we actually give you the access token. So if you have those scopes in your deployment descriptor, we'll still do the same thing we do today with AppScript add-ons, and do the authorization flow and forward the token, and that token is going to be valid and fresh. And then all you have to do is just inject that into the API client or whatever HTTP client you're using to make the request. It's really, not that hard. It's, it's like an extra line or two compared to AppScript, but it's really not a huge burden.
Yeah, I can just to step into that. I had this little one prepared because I actually forgot to mention. You can easily get the qualities because you saw I put in the scopes on in the API to where the add-on asks for the user for the permission, and you actually get I use the Bearer token here. It does the work for me to fetch the Bearer token from the call Google sends to my server. But in the end, I just have a middleware function. I get caller details, and it logs to me that it actually sees that this is this user actually calling my add-on, and these are the scopes. And I can use this token to do authenticated calls to the Gmail API and any API I want, which actually you don't have to build this OAuth flow. Also in your own backend, you actually have the token with you. And this is another powerful thing, which I found very easy.
Just a quick question from Joshua. Do you, in terms of the tokens, do you need to factor in refreshing them?
That's a great question. So yeah, the tokens that are sent along with the request are only meant for interactive use. You can, if you need to, do. I mean, you'd have to basically just build a companion web app and link out to that, open it up, and then go through the auth flow again if you want offline access. It's not, I wouldn't say ideal, but it's not that hard to do. But yeah, we only manage tokens for first-party APIs like Google APIs where it's interactive. If you need to connect to a third-party service or anything else, then you're kind of on your own in how to do that.
Yeah, I think the question was also more, these tokens live for like an hour, I think.
Yeah.
Well, what if you want, I think, just also wants, if you store the token to have like a trigger do a daily job for you, like scanning the email, is there a way to refresh this auth token?
There's not. You would have to it would fall into basically like treating our APIs as a third-party API at that point. So you'd have to kind of kick out to a web app, authenticate the user, get a refresh token, store it in some place, and it kind of falls outside what the add-ons framework is going to do for you.
Yeah, it makes sense. Also in terms of security-wise.
Are there, in terms of when you're setting up your own alternate runtime, what would you say are the key considerations in terms of your infrastructure? So, for example, we had a question from CBM Services wondering, are there particular environments that you won't be able to use unless Google certify them, or is that not really a consideration at this point?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not really a thing, but it is a thing, and it really just depends on who the users of that add-on are going to be. If you're just building it for yourself or your organization, it really doesn't matter because internal apps within Workspace, they're not subject to security reviews or anything. So yeah, if it's in your own data center on your desktop, it doesn't matter. If you're deploying to the marketplace for general consumption and you're using sensitive or not even sensitive, but restricted scopes, which are discouraged unless you have a really good but restricted scopes, like, then yes, there's a security review that goes into that. They're going to look at they're going to care about your deployment practices and who has access to code and who has access to user data and things like that. But that's only if you're kind of treading into more dangerous territory around, like, I need full access to every file in Drive or every message in Gmail. If you do the per message scopes or per file scopes, then it doesn't really matter at that point.
Yeah, that's interesting. I saw that in the blog post where you talked about these when we went general availability. It was an add-on you were building for a customer. A lot of your work is actually for specific customers for domain-wide add-ons. Is there any different approach you take there? Obviously, as Steve mentioned, it's a little less of a burden on you to create those. I'm also curious, what's the demand like for that? Are a lot of people starting to discover add-ons? And what's your hope and aspiration, I guess, for the add-on market?
I hope I can't keep up. No. It's unknown territory, also for customers, in my experience, because the existence of add-ons, the sidebar that there is for a while now. It's not always like there is something there that you can use and something that you can tap in. And I think it's nice, and I want also a little bit focus on that. And that's one of the most, it's a very small step to start using add-ons with your workspace tools. And I think there could be a lot of potential. Like, it's unknown now. And I think it's good that we have these kinds of videos and a lot of publicity. And I also want to show people and customers what can actually be achieved. It's possible now because we can quite quickly show something and build something. It doesn't take like 4 weeks until something functional. I have more than once used the card builder tool to just say, hey, this is how it's going to look. What do we say if this was next to your Gmail? You see your contacts in Gmail here listed and do stuff with it. So I hope this helps, and this could really help on bringing more customers to actually ask for add-ons. The next step for me, of course, would be to have something in the marketplace and get more, not for one specific customer, but for many. And it's something I really focus on.
No, I totally agree with you. I think, the fact that you can build it fast, and I'm surprised you say you can build it as fast as you can, but I definitely see that. I use the tool to prototype the UIs so quickly that I kind of feel like unlike before where HTML servers, I was literally like putting tags in an editor and trying to make it work and then screwing it up. Now I feel like I can actually build a business use case visually and then quickly hoist it up, whether it's AppScript or in alternate runtimes, and see that result fast and then explain it to a user almost minutes after they tell me what they want. So from that standpoint, I think it's going to be beautiful. I think the question is just getting people used to knowing it and experiencing it. And part of that is we need to see more examples out there that people build.
Yeah, and I think there's even there's room to make things even faster on the development side. When early on, I haven't released this yet as any code, but when I was prototyping things and playing around before this was released, you saw that like all that middleware in Rails code about getting identity and things like that. A lot of that it's the same code no matter who's building the add-on, right? And so like, and then a lot of things around like accessing forms and doing navigation, just taking all that stuff that is common across of that and then putting it into a toolkit. I think, we could actually make it so that, you could prototype an add-on in, 20 minutes or something like that. If, if it's a really opinionated approach to doing. And so I have a bunch of stuff that I hopefully will get out there at some point, but and then open it up and can work on it with people. But there's room to make this even easier for people.
Where should folks look for that, Steve, or follow for that to find it when you actually drop it?
I don't know yet. If I do it, it will probably be more experimental than official, and it'll probably land on my personal GitHub. And I'm usually on GitHub. I'm Squirrel. It's SQRRRL, 3 R's.
I don't want to look that one up. Can someone else find it for me?
It's all right. It's I can. I haven't created a repo or anything for it yet, so it's this is all just stuff that's sitting on my laptop right now. But it's an area where I've been showing a couple of people like this is a vanilla Node.js add-on where everything is really explicit and you have to do everything step by step, and then this is all the stuff we can pull out, right? And it's like it cuts the code in more than half.
I have a question.
When you go, Steve.
Sure. Rethinking, retraining the brain, so to speak. For example, with editor add-ons, we're used to having like an on-install function, then on-open, things like that. Then as we move to GWAO, you have the manifest, which helps to trigger things off as things are opened. With alternate runtimes, Real and Steve, is there any rethinking, changing perspectives that could help us going from one to the other?
It's a good question. Yeah, I mean, it
has some triggers, and the only trigger that you configure is the URL that you call. So and it defines what part of your application it lands in. So and in my opinion, you have a compose trigger. When you open an email, I can call a URL and send this JSON to build a car for the compose email, or I'm next to my inbox, or I press a button in my add-on. It's just configuring your endpoint calls and giving the parameters for my own backend to know what to send back. So it's not just a tree on install on edit and on open. It's everything you create yourself. And is that what you're thinking of?
Yeah.
Yeah. The only things that kind of come to mind are it's really more versus the older editor add-ons. Where you have HTML and client-side JavaScript. It's a big architectural difference in that case. Because you can do a lot client-side that in terms of coordinating state and the interactivity that you don't get with add-ons.
Mm-hmm.
And so how you think about state, especially with card stacks, is like a little bit different. And there's some there's some like easy techniques. I think that like one of the things I actually just I like all the state that I care about that I want to put through a workflow. I just make a little JSON object, serialize it, and we have this notion of action parameters, and so it's always just getting forwarded. And so I just have this one state that is always there throughout the stack, and if somebody goes backwards, it just automatically reverts to the previous state. There's like it works actually really, really nicely, but it's just like the fact that you don't have any client-side logic that is the biggest architectural shift that you have to get your head around. It's almost like it's like old school web programming, where it's like you don't have like you're just doing HTML the back end, and you're doing form posts and no JavaScript. So it's like if you're around back in like early days of web apps, like it's kind of like that, which sounds worse than it is. But it's just it's a little bit different model, but not that hard to adapt to.
It is essentially just navigating through pages.
Yeah.
That's what you want to do.
It's funny you mentioned that, because to me that was the first big difference when we went to GWAL was the stack. And I remember trying to lay out logically in my mind this flow of an application, and then me, the developer, got lost on what I was trying to do and accomplish and where the user should be. And to be honest, I haven't seen a ton of examples that use a very deep stack. Either one of you, can you give us some use cases on how you've seen a stack being used effectively, or how often do you even think that's applicable to the type of use cases that you come across with add-ons? Either.
Yeah, I mean, I think like any sort of like master detail type pattern, the stacks are really natural for. I think one thing we have, one of the earliest internal ones, like it was a team, like a organizational browser, right? Like you get an email, you want to see who's on. Look at the recipients of an email, and you can see them. Go look up in your corporate directory who those people are, who their managers, where they sit, right? And then you could start pivoting on all that information, right? Like I want to see who are the reports, who's their manager, right? And as you drill through those are all pushing and popping things off that stack. And so like those cases are super, super natural. Same for a CRM, right? Like I get an email about a customer. I get some high level details, but then I want to drill in and look at other opportunities associated with that customer, and then but still be able to get back to where I started.
Yeah.
But I'm also like a lot of the stuff I built recently is just a single card. I just do an update. So they're both patterns are super valuable. It really is use case specific.
Yeah, so the great one's the homepage. Boom, there it is. You got on the side. There's your real estate on the screen. We'll see you again.
So, Real, is the card builder, is that your go-to tool when you're developing?
For me personally, it is.
Yeah.
Right. More experienced people in my team that work like tools like Figma to create the cards and make the JSON out of it. But for me, yeah. And if I want to quickly show what's possible, then you use the card builder tool. And actually, I think even when we have the design how we wanted the card to be, that we created in the card builder tool just to get the JSON.
Yeah.
It's not. I have some helper functions to create some sections and cards and to build the structure that the JSON needs. But actually, for Steve, it's sometimes a bit unclear for me how the tool wants it to be set up, and then I miss a key somewhere. But getting better on that. But yes, the card builder is quite valuable. Yeah.
So I always say this, and it makes Steve blush a little, but I think it's essential. I don't think you'd want to build it, especially the AppScript version. I have a little helper add-on that I simply take the tool's AppScript output and put it into my project so I can quickly see it live working in a session. And I couldn't picture doing that without, especially the AppScript version, without the tool. So either way, I think it's essential. So I know we flashed that a couple times, but do take a look at that. And again, anybody tuning in, if you have feedback or wants or desires, Steve is your.
I take feature requests. So anything you need, just file. There's a little bug report link in there. And,
but also the other way around. Because recently when I started using and doing the first deployment, I wasn't able to paste the JSON that I created to see if it ends up quite well in the card. But you can use the tool now for that as well.
Yeah.
Just do it the other way around.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, that's something I actually do a lot too. Is I just want to validate that the JSON is gonna what it's gonna look like without having to do the deploy and install and everything. And
exactly.
Yeah.
And Rio, in terms of the infrastructure that you're using, I know in the documentation it recommends using Google Cloud Run. Is that what you're using for your add-ons?
Yes, and just the normal cloud functions.
Yeah, both are totally.
You can even use AppScript.
We did have a related. Let me just. So I'm just going to show the link to Cloud Run, and I think we're keen to actually have a show on Google Cloud Run at a later date, so we can possibly follow that one. But there was a question from Joshua about. Let me see if I can find it. It was around a hybrid approach. Where was it? Of using AppScript and alternate runtime.
Yeah, of course, AppScript could be used to generate the JSON for you and respond to your alternate runtime. I don't think there is anything against that.
The hybrid deployment thing. I haven't actually tried it myself. I know things were actually like the way the deployment descriptor is done. It was designed to support this, but I haven't actually tried it. In fact, even before this was GA, like the way we actually do all runtimes was create the AppScript project. Like we create like an AppScript add-on, and then in the function for what the entry point was, just put in a URL. And I think that still works. I don't know why it wouldn't, but that would be one thing to try. Is you could actually just like put in the URL for your endpoint in an existing add-on, and then see if it invokes it. But yeah, this is an area where we just need better documentation on like what does this migration path look like. But the goal was to actually have allow this sort of hybrid migration where you can start kind of peeling off parts of your add-on and then eventually convert it.
Another question from Joshua is about conversion. So if you have an existing AppScript, could you drop that into the card builder tool and then get the JSON alternative? Not
at the moment. That one I left out because like interpreting JSON is really easy. Interpreting arbitrary JavaScript has a lot more concerns, right? In terms of that code has to be sandboxed. There's if somebody has an infinite loop in there, you have to like be able to climb out. And, it's not written to handle unlike basically running AppScript code. Definitely thought about this. I want to do it at some point. It's just it's a much more complicated problem.
I guess you could drop in tiny snippets.
Yeah, if like I'd have to say like you can't have any conditional like no loops.
Yeah.
Things like that. No, it's a really interesting problem to do. There is another way to do it though. Although you get you're not going to get quite the right output. But in AppScript, this was added a while back, there is a to.json method on the card objects. And so you can use that, and you just call that and print it out on the console, and it's going to give you a rough structure of what that JSON is going to look like. The only difference is it is based off of an older version of the markup than what add-ons are expected to return today. And so there's a little bit of processing that you'd have to do just to change the name of certain fields, but that's something that could easily be automated with like a little helper method. That's actually an interesting. I probably could do that, just like give people like a little AppScript function they can run, and then it will give you the JSON for your card. But it's an interesting question. It's just not one that we tried to solve yet.
Hey Steve, we have another question coming in from Faustino about the card service question. Basic question: is there a dialogue or sidebar only interface? And I'd like to just footnote on that. Can you also tell how the tool works with chat on top of that as well when you answer this question?
Sure. So the card markup doesn't really care if it's in the sidebar or dialogue. The tool, does show you both. The choice of whether or not the card will appear as a dialogue is more a function of the entry points. And right now, the only place where dialogues are used is in compose time actions. Right. So if you're, just because like when you're it's just because of the way the Gmail interface is constructed, it's a little hard to kind of tease apart, is the little message mole, that little pop up on the bottom, like what's the sidebar for that? Like it doesn't have a sidebar. So, any actions initiated from there do pop up in a dialogue. There's some other stuff around dialogues in chat coming that we'll see more use of this. And then the question for chat, so going back to earlier comment about this like to.json method in AppScript and card service, I said it's based on this older version. That older version is actually the same markup that's used in chat. If you do an interactive card. So it's like they are slightly different. They're like logically the same, but like the things like decorated text, right? We call it decorated text in add-ons, but it's key value in chat. So I did create there's actually another page, exactly. In Card Builder, if you just add /chat, it will go into like basically chat mode. And you can use it to construct interactive cards for chat messages. In an ideal world, which I hope is going to be soon, all that will converge, and so it'll just be one tool, and it's just going to be, it's just different ways that card would be surfaced, but a card is a card. It should all work, and it may get visualized differently for different contexts, but
I could quickly show there, because here the card is actually I had this deployed also on editor time. You see that my add-on is here as well, and it's actually the same add-on, but it pops up as a dialog here. So for Faustino, this is possible as well.
Yeah,
and we've been playing with this and how this could be of use here on the add-ons.
Yeah, I would definitely love to see at some point, more like, we have the stack-based navigation and add-ons. There's definitely use cases where like it would be valuable for an add-on to say like I really want to open a dialogue, and go into a slightly different layout. If it's a little bit more information dense, or if we start allowing more horizontal layout of components. Right now it's all very vertical. I know a lot of developers have been asking for ways to take up more horizontal real estate than you can today. And then I think once you get into that space, then you start going, it's like, well, okay, if you could do that, then why not open a dialogue and give people a little bit more control? So, there's a lot of room to open up to the design flexibility for people. It's still early, so just be patient, but hopefully we'll see a lot more layout options as we go.
Keep sending us that feedback. Hey, we're nearly out of time, but Riel, I just wanted to first of all thank you for being an early pioneer and an early adopter and coming and showing us this stuff today. You're based out of the Netherlands. Where can folks reach you? And let me just ask you bluntly: are you looking for anybody to join your team? Are you growing? Are you hiring? What are you looking for?
Yes, always looking for nice people that can help me build add-ons and make smart toolings on the. Just you can go to our website. Thank you. You can see what we're all about, what we do, what we want to reach in the upcoming years to come. I think having our workspace customers and bringing extra services using add-ons and everything that it might bring in the future will be a great business case for us.
Sure? Yeah, absolutely.
You've really worked me hard, with all the banners and questions, and I'm exhausted. I don't know. I think we have to finish the show just because of that. And I don't want to, because it's been really fascinating, and I'm sure we could go on for a lot longer. So this is clearly a topic I think we're going to have to revisit quite soon. Yes, thanks, Riel and Steve, for coming on and just really sharing your expertise. And thank you also for all the people who've been contributing questions to the chat. It's been really useful having your eyes and ears just to kind of surface the things that are topical for you, the things that you want solved. I think Steve might be going away with quite a bit of feedback in terms of what the community is.
Oh yeah, no, it's been great question. Great feedback. So yeah, it's all stuff. Yeah, that definitely want to get channeled back to the product teams and see how we can make things even better for people.
In terms of feedback, is the best way to put feature requests in the issue tracker?
Yeah, it definitely helps to have that in there. There are teams that look at that and triage it. Reach out on Twitter or wherever. A lot of times it's want to have more of a conversation around things than just an issue report. I'm ping me. You can. My email has been pretty public, so I'm not going to say it here, but I'm pretty easy to track down.
That's your test number one. if you can't find his email address,
maybe exactly.
Maybe
It's a really easy one to figure out. But no, Twitter works, and then, go to his DM and follow up via email or whatever. But yeah, issue tracker is a great place. If you're a customer, like if you're a workspace customer and you're building stuff internally, support, sales, there's different ways of getting attention. But yeah, the more feedback we get, the better.
It's always good to hear. Well, I think we're going to have to close it. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll be back on the air very soon. So stay tuned and happy non-scripting.
Yeah. Thank you for